Bad news for the ocean, it appears to be running out of air due to climate change. Now, there are scientists out there that are warning that due to the warming of the oceans, there are certain spots in the ocean that are literally running out of oxygen and are causing huge disruptions in uh, the animal kingdom as well as the food chain. So now this one of these scientists is Andreas uh, Oschlies, who's an oceanographer at the Helmholtz Center for Ocean Research, Kiel in Germany. And so he says there is a disruption going on, and there is a massive loss of oxygen. And so, look, uh, there are some disastrous figures here. Now, first, some tropical regions have seen oxygen levels drop by 40% in the last 50 years. Now, some of that can be explained by these algae blooms that tend to, happen more in these coastal regions in the equatorial regions, right? So now other places around the world have actually seen about an average of oxygen loss of about 2%. And so, okay, a little extreme in the, like I said, equatorial regions, and there's reasons for that, but also around the world, we're seeing about 2%. And so that's every year. Now, there's a big problem with that. It turns out ocean animals also need oxygen. I know, right? And in fact, the ocean ecosystem is actually very delicate. And so, if you see slight changes in the variability of oxygen in the water, well, that changes animal behavior, uh, especially even when it comes to reproduction. Those adjustments can expose animals to new predators or force them into food scarce areas. And then, like I said before, really impacts reproduction as well. Deoxygenation, that's a really hard word. Deoxygenation, O'Shilly says, is the most pressing issue facing sea animals today, but isn't the only one. You also have overfishing, pollution, and ocean acidification. All right. So now, um, how does this lead to climate change? Well, a warming planet means warming ocean, right? A warming ocean loses oxygen for a couple of different reasons. First, the warmer liquid becomes, the less gas it holds. So it's kind of like a good explanation is, um, or a good comparison is your soda going flat. Okay. So when your soda gets warmer, it loses its carbon and it becomes flat. And that's why. And so the ocean works the same way. So when the ocean water gets warmer, it loses gas. And eventually, of course, if it gets hot enough, it boils away. And so that's one way that it's losing oxygen. Second, as polar sea ice melts, there's a layer of buoyant water at the sea surface above colder, more saltier water. Now, this process keeps currents from mixing surface water down to deeper ocean depths. So now that surface water holds a lot more oxygen than the water that is deeper down. And so these currents help mix that water so that the ocean closer to the bottom still has oxygen in it. And again, that's really important, right? So now, if you have less oxygen, obviously that's going to have some very negative impacts for, as I said, ocean animals, right? And the food supply, the food web. So now zooplankton is actually the most basic part of the food web, right? Well, them and their predators have, since there is less oxygen in the ocean now, they have had to adapt to sections by either moving or changing their habits, going in different areas, and then of course being exposed to different predators. Now, scientists also point out physiological changes to sea creatures as their bodies adjust to lower oxygen levels. Um, Now, of course, a lot of that is a problem for the fishing industry. As the Independent notes, oxygen rich regions become scarce, current fish habitats will shrink, and force economically important species such as tuna, which globally generate an estimated $42 billion annually, into new ranges. Coastline fisheries also face the added pressure of agricultural runoff, fertilizing algal blooms that consume more oxygen, so creating more algae blooms or red tides. So it's a huge problem. And another impact, of course, or effect of climate change. So, look, I never would have imagined that there were giant dead spots in the ocean, but here we are. And you can read the full report. It's in the description of the video. But basically, the whole point is the ocean is running out of oxygen. Why are we not concerned about this? Why are we not worried? Scientists are worried, but why aren't we hearing this on news channels? Why aren't we hearing this more in the news? Why is this not one of the most important things that we're seeing right now? Well, it's because, unfortunately, we have a media that is owned by corporations, that is funded by fossil fuel companies that are driving climate change. And look, this is not just, like, oh, I want to protect the whales, right? No, this is about the future viability and habitability of the ocean. Again, there are a lot of places, a lot of humans that depend on ocean animals for food, as well as other things. And so if you eliminate, through climate change, the ability for these animals to reproduce, we already have a problem with overfishing. We already have a problem with pollution. Now we're making even worse. We're killing off our own food sources. That's not good. That's really, really bad. And if we continue to let this go, it's going to snowball even further, and we won't be able to put a stop to it. We've got to reduce emissions now and then eliminate completely carbon emissions within the next 10 years, or else this is going to get even worse. Hey guys, hopefully you enjoyed that free video. Now I'm going to have to ask you a favor. Between the demonetization and the YouTube algorithm messing around with view counts, etc., we're having a hard time adjusting to the new YouTube reality, which is where you guys come in. See, we have a Patreon, patreon.com/TYTNation, set up to help us rely on you guys, the viewers, instead of big corporate ads. Look, you know the show. You know I'm not in favor of big corporations anyway. So help us transition away from relying on the ad model to pay the bills and sign up to be a patron, patreon.com/TYTNation. That goes a long way to help us keep the lights on. And you guys will know that you're supporting independent, progressive media.